episode here. Today I have Matt Bach with me. Bach, it's Bach, right? Matt Bach.
Yep.
As in Johann Sebastian Bach, but you're not related to Bach.
I think my sister did like a cultural fair in high school, and it's a very distant relationship.
Hey, distant is still good. Matt is with Puget Systems, and Matt, what's your title over at Puget?
Oh man, it seems to change a lot, but I believe right now we're calling my position a hardware analyst. It's basically we look at the hardware that's available from like Intel, NVIDIA, AMD, and the software that people are using. So a lot of Adobe products is my area, some Blackmagic stuff, and kind of looking at how they combine and figuring out the right combination between the two, because hardware is changing, software is changing.
Yes.
Hardware is getting amazingly complex now. It's not just everything's on your CPU and it's one core. Now it's...
Right. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is for people who are watching this who don't know who Puget Systems is, which anybody who's watched my channel probably knows who Puget Systems is, but give us a rundown of what Puget is and what they do.
Yeah, so we're a workstation manufacturer. We're not a big guy like Dell or HP, but we really focus on tailoring our workstations for the workflow of the end user. So it's not generic systems you buy just off the shelf. It's every single customer sits down with one of our consultants and talks through like what do they do, what's their headaches, getting down to like things like if you work with video, what codecs do you work with, what FPS, what cameras do you use, and then using all of that information to get them into the workstation that's going to give them the best performance for their budget, as well as being highly reliable. Because that's a big thing for us is reliability.
Right.
Man,
right.
One blue screen, like who cares if it's 5% faster if you get a blue screen even one more time a month. Like,
right.
That's just awful.
Well, if I think one of the things that I like about Puget, one of the many things that I love about you guys tailor your machines to creatives, to people who, like me or like other people who are watching this, the machines are specific to the task that you do. So if you're doing motion graphics or 3D animation or just Photoshop or Lightroom, your machines are tailored specific to whatever that creative task is. And I think one of the things that because I became aware of you guys through what's his name, Barnacles.
Oh yeah, Jerry.
Yeah. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I never know how to pronounce his name. And that was the first time that I ever saw you guys. And then of course, Linus Tech Tips, the Corridor Digital guys. I see you guys all over the place. But one of the things that I love about you guys, when I was in the need of switching from a Mac to a PC because the Macs just didn't have the power necessary to be able to crunch a lot of the numbers and a lot of the tasks that I was doing with motion graphics, with After Effects, as well as 3D animation like Cinema 4D, and you guys, you guys had that covered in spades. So you guys make machines that are tailored specific to a creative task, whether it's Photoshop, whether it's editing, whether it's After Effects or 3D animation. Now you guys are making Unreal. You said earlier that technology is changing so fast, the machines are getting more complicated. Kind of walk me through kind of like a day-to-day process of how you determine the components that you put together for a particular workstation.
Sure. Yeah. The first thing I would say is that there's a lot of lead up before we can even do any of this kind of testing. Like myself, I don't have a background in video. My background is in hardware. So before I could start taking on like the Adobe suite, I had to learn all of that. So I've gone to several Adobe Maxes and NABs, and my whole goal there is to go to sessions to learn what people do in the real world and talk to customers and talk with people on the floor. So there's all of that like buildup of what is it that matters to the people? Because we could test, maybe we'd look at Premiere Pro and all we test is exporting. And like a very easy thing to benchmark But most people, that's not the primary concern. It's like live playback. So we have to understand what people care about first. After that, then we kind of, if it's a new software package, so Unreal is one that we've just started tackling because it's being used everywhere, like previs, animation, games, obviously. And that's a new one we're taking on. That one is a little bit different because the person who's doing it actually has a background in game dev. But we still kind of have to take almost a shotgun approach at first at what hardware is going to work. We have to a whole bunch of spaghetti at the wall and see like, okay, that one is really bad. We don't have to worry about it. This is okay. This is really good. And then we can go from there and really dial it in. And okay, we know that CPUs with a high frequency do really well in Unreal, for example. So we focus on CPUs that are like that and we ignore things like dual Xeon. So then at that point, once we figured out kind of what is broadly the right thing, then it's kind of just iterative testing over time. We improve what we test, and we keep testing the products that we know are going to be good, should be good, like new stuff from Intel or AMD. But then we always keep a little bit on both sides, try to include in our testing. So if we find that some application is starting to do better with different hardware, we can keep track of how it's changing over time.
Now, how do you what benchmarks do you guys? I know you guys have benchmarks that you've created, but how do you what standards do you go by? I mean, is there a standard that you guys go by? I mean,
it's whatever we make up, kind of. I mean, since you're right, we're making a lot of these benchmarks. There's a few out there. When we first started, there was actually a Photoshop benchmark that we based a lot of our stuff actually on when they stopped doing it. I don't even remember what it was called now. So some of it started off from other testing that people have done. Others, it's just based on what... Honestly, a lot of it is what our customers complain to us about. We have the advantage of being a workstation manufacturer and a hardware tester. Like, we publish articles, we do all this testing.
Right.
And being able to see it from both sides is really nice. We have good connections with, like, Intel and AMD and NVIDIA. We also have good connections with Adobe and with end users. And we're talking to dozens of people every day, and they are just, pouring their heart out to us about what their problems are because they want us to help them. And so we get to take all of that information and kind of try to answer all of those questions as much as we can in our benchmarks. And it's not perfect. I mean, the problem with a benchmark is it's always going to be generic. We can't test absolutely everything. So the most we can do is get a general sense of performance and go that route.
Well, you had mentioned Adobe. There's a couple of things that you had mentioned that I want to touch on. I remember one of the very first conversations that I had with you about a machine. Essentially, one of the biggest issues that I was having with my editing is that more and more people were, they're shooting with DSLRs or mirrorless cameras, and the codecs on those things are mostly MP4. And so for me, that was the biggest issue that I was having, is that the MP4 codec is not a very editing-friendly codec. And so I was having playback issues a lot. And and the only way sometimes to either deal with those things was either grin and bear it, or I would have to transcode the footage to ProRes or something that was more editor-friendly. And I remember you, you telling me too that that sometimes that is a similar experience that you guys have been having with a lot of your users as well too.
Yeah, well, and luckily that one is actually a whole lot easier very recently.
Right.
So
and
before
that was the next thing I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So like Adobe in particular, it's different with like DaVinci Resolve or all those other guys, but Adobe in particular, that type of footage, H264, HEVC, really, really terrible to edit. Just the nature of how it's compressed. Like, it's amazing codec, but it's not made for editing.
Right.
And but you could use what's called hardware acceleration, and Adobe only supported it with Intel QuickSync. So it's something that's built into only like their mid-range CPUs. And so oftentimes we'd have customers who say like, well, I work with a footage from a drone or DSLR or a cell phone, but I also have a RED camera. And I'm doing Red 8K. And it's like, because before it was, well, we can either give you a good experience when working with your footage from a DSLR, or we can give you a good experience working with footage from a RED, because RED footage needs way beefier CPU, something that doesn't have hardware decoding.
Yes.
But Premiere Pro, the latest version was at 14.5. It was just released during Adobe Max. They added GPU-based hardware decoding. So now you can use your video card to do that. And oh my goodness, it's so much better. Oh, it is amazingly better.
I haven't tested it myself personally, but I saw the testing that you did, and I saw the Adobe Max video. I think you were also on with, did you give an Adobe Max presentation, or was it just a live?
No,
live
we did a video that Adobe was promoting during Adobe Max. That's on the Adobe Video YouTube channel and on our own now.
Yeah.
And then I also did a stream with Jason Levine and Caroline. I forget what her name is, her last name is, but she's a member of the Adobe Care team.
Right.
And that was really interesting too, because then, Jason Levine's an amazing host.
Yes.
Absolutely. But it was really cool to be able to talk about, like that new feature from our standpoint, like performance.
Yeah.
But then also, since Caroline was a member of the Adobe Care team, she could talk about how, like, yes, we have a lot of people frustrated about that. And now it's way better.
I haven't had a chance to install it yet, to update it yet, because I've been in a couple of projects. So I always get nervous about updating during production.
Do it when you have time.
Yeah. Well, and actually that's one of the things I want to kind of come back to in terms of Windows, because I know when I was first talking to you guys, one of my hesitations was going to Windows. I had such a horrible experience with Windows. It literally just pushed me into the arms of the Apple community. And that was a Sony Vaio. And that was many, many moons ago, but it still stuck with me, and it freaked me out. And I know this is one of the things that I talked with you guys about, is, there was a hesitancy about jumping into a PC platform. And you had mentioned earlier as well, too, that the blue screen. Occasionally I'll get the blue screen, but one of the things that freaked me out more than anything else was the updates. And you have the ability to push those off a little bit, but so how do you, because I'm sure that you have a lot of people who come to you who are Mac users. What do you tell them? How do you, is there anything that you can tell them in terms of an experience that they'll have with a Puget machine?
Sure. Yeah. So what I usually say, I was going to say when I go to trade shows and talking to people on the floor, but I haven't done that for a little bit now. Hopefully we'll get back to that.
Not since Adobe Max last year.
Yeah. Fortunately, hopefully soon. But so kind of my quick answer to that is oftentimes that the reason why Apple is so solid and good is because they control everything. You know that everything is going to be quality. They control the hardware, they control the software, they control the firmware. So everything is working together from one company. The difficulty with PC is that there is so many choices, not only in terms of hardware and software and drivers and firmware. There's also all the combinations of different hardware. So it's kind of the Wild West in some ways. So you can buy a computer from us and it could be excellent quality. We make sure that the power supply is a good quality power supply, the motherboard, everything is quality, and we test it a whole lot. And you can buy from someone else, anyone else, and maybe they'll skimp on something. They'll skimp on the hidden things like power supply. They don't advertise power supply in the specs because who cares? But if they use a $20 power supply, that's going to turn the whole computer terrible. Yeah. So that's one of the things you do have to be careful with PC is you need to make sure that you're going with a high quality vendor, not just a cheap one. Because already you're going to get so much more performance out of a PC than a Mac. So don't try to push your luck on how much performance per dollar you're getting, because it's just not going to be worth it at a certain point.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but so that's part of it is you do have to be careful with the hardware and make sure that you're running within specs. A lot of companies will overclock CPU or use memory that's outside of spec for the CPU. Maybe they don't even realize.
Right.
So it's all those kind of things that have to go together, and that helps tremendously. The other part you're talking about, like updates, yeah, that is something that we're always constantly struggling with. We do some things that we to try to mitigate the problems. One is we only use Windows 10 Pro, which has an option to defer upgrades. So this isn't like security patches, so it doesn't affect security, but like, hey, that new version of Windows that everyone's complaining about, hopefully it'll get deferred by a couple of months.
Right.
And then when you get it, it'll have a lot of those bugs worked out already.
Right. Is there, there's probably not a way to just shut it off altogether. It automatically has to happen. Yeah, okay.
I mean, you can unplug your computer from the internet, but then that's going to cause a lot of other problems.
There you go. You said, you hit on some things that were kind of a big concern for me I built a Hackintosh many years ago, and it was a fun process, and I enjoyed it. But it was a lot of headaches in terms of making sure that everything was working together, making sure that I could get the Mac experience. Now, granted, that machine wasn't going to be a workstation. It was basically just like a media server. So I didn't really have to have high-end items for that. But going through that process, as you just said, making sure that you had the right the right power supply, all the right components that all worked together very specifically, and even then, because it's Hackintosh, it's not an actual Mac computer. There were the Bluetooth and the wireless issues that had to be addressed, and all of those were all software and BIOS and all that stuff. And I'm going through that whole process, and again, it was kind of fun, but at the same time too, I'm not a computer guy, and that was one of the things that kind of concerned me was, am I going to have all of the right items to put together? That was also with graphics cards too. You have all these manufacturers who are all making, versions of the same graphics card. And I'm like, well, what is better about Asus versus, PNY or PYN or, so I think that's one of the things that I loved about you guys is that you guys had all of that.
Yeah. So I think there's two things there. One is there's a lot of information. Sticking with the hardware first, there's a lot of information that just the public doesn't have.
Right.
Because we sell so many computers, we do have to sometimes use Asus or Gigabyte or PNY, and we get experience of like, okay, we know right now that brand is having a lot of issues. We're really not going to use them. We're going to use Gigabyte. And so we can really dial it in. It's because you look online, you're just going to see marketing specs, marketing workers. Yeah. Everyone's going to say, we're the best. Yeah. Whereas we actually can get all that information ourselves. So that is one advantage of someone like us versus building your own is we have all that extra information. But also at the same time, like you were saying, like, you just want to get your own work done. You don't want to have to fiddle around and mess with stuff. Some people enjoy that, and great. If you enjoy it, if that's like your hobby, awesome. Yeah. But, if you just want to be able to knuckle down and like work on your, what makes you actually money.
Right.
Then it's well worth the investment, at least I think, to, pay someone to do it for you. For some reason, I don't do work on my own car. Like, I'm not really a car guy. I'm not interested in it. I could do it, but...
That actually is a really, really great analogy. I like that. I never thought about that, but yeah, I don't want to change my own oil. You're right. I probably could. I'd have to watch.
I could. Yeah.
I'd have to watch a YouTube video, but.
I could do it. Yeah, if I watch a YouTube video and stuff. But like, my time, I would rather spend my time on something else.
Right.
Whether it's my family, whether it's my work.
Yeah.
That again makes me money.
Yes.
So that's a big part is that. We take that off of you. That's why our consultants would ask, like, what do you do?
Yes.
Not what hardware do you want? The hardware that's our problem. Our problem is the hardware. Your problem is getting your work done. The second part of that is also the support side. Like, what do you do when something goes wrong?
Yes.
Computers are computers. There's going to be things that go wrong.
Right.
And so we have the experience on the hardware side, but almost more importantly, on the workflow side, we help a ton of our customers. I had someone I was just talking to yesterday where they had a project in Premiere Pro that they had to get delivered, but it wasn't exporting, and like Premiere Pro was hanging up. And so we went through on the phone. We went through all the normal troubleshooting steps. Clear your preferences, clear your cache, import the project rather than opening it, importing it into a new project.
Right.
And it turns out it's because they updated a week ago to the new version of Premiere Pro, and for whatever reason, it didn't like the old project. So just had him downgrade, and I saw his video went up on YouTube this morning. So
great.
Problem fixed.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I learned a long time ago to never update in the middle of in the middle. As tempting as it is, because I can't tell you how many times where I'm like, oh man, I really like the hardware acceleration that's in the new version. I very, very much want to try that, and actually, I'm hoping to actually have that installed before this episode goes up in a couple weeks. So I just jumped the shark there and telling people when it was going to be up, but.
Yeah, the one nice thing I'm liking, well, there's a couple of odd things. One, I don't like how Adobe keeps trying to turn on auto updates. It seems like every time you actually go to update, it like pre-checks the update software automatically. It's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
But one of the good things I like that Adobe is doing is they now have the beta line of After Effects and Premiere Pro and Media Encoder. And the really nice thing about the beta is when you install it, it installs side by side. So if you want to try out some new feature, you can run it, and it doesn't replace your old version of Premiere Pro. Right,
which is very key.
Yeah,
very, very key.
That's huge.
You kind of touched on some things that before I got a Puget System, I had a PC at the company that I was working at, and it was a Dell, and I know when they basically asked me what specs I wanted for this particular machine, and I told them, okay, here's kind of the base level of what I need. I mean, it's mainly the graphics card that I need, but I gave them the specs, and then they went ahead and their IT ordered the machine from Dell, who was their provider, and they ordered a server workstation, basically, which, that was great. It was, and it had it was a dual Xenon processing machine, and they got two 24-core processors. So,
probably not the right thing for what you're doing.
So I was kind of like, okay, well, I didn't ask for that, but hey, I'll take it. But what, and I think this speaks to the importance of somebody like Puget Systems, who has the knowledge base for creative workstations, because I'm dealing with IT. None of these guys. I mean, there were only three people there in production, and everybody else was on Mac. So this is going to be the only PC. And of course, they're telling me, oh, PC's better. Okay, great, fine. Let's get a PC and everything like that. And I remember the first day that I turned it on, it was lagging, and it was like, okay, this is weird. This is a beast of a machine. It shouldn't be like this. And the IT guy would come over and he'd look at it and it's like, oh yeah, it's probably all the plugins that you installed. And I'm like, no, all of these plugins are developed on PCs, so there shouldn't be any of these issues. And then he would get on the phone with Adobe, and we would spend hours literally trying to figure out why this machine was lagging. And then I come in one day and I turn the machine on, and the motherboard is fried. And it just completely wiped out. It had the M2 memory cards on it, so all of those were fried and everything like that. Well, obviously it turns out that it was a bad motherboard, and but what was frustrating is that it was frustrating having to deal with IT people who aren't familiar with applications like After Effects and Cinema 4D, and so I think that was one of the things that you guys kind of put my mind at ease in that regard, especially when that very first phone call that I had with Wilson. I mean, Wilson, like you said earlier, you have sales people who know how to ask the right questions, and that was my experience from the very beginning. Was Wilson knew what questions to ask, and and put together a machine that, was specific to what I needed.
Yeah.
Now, I know that, and that, because that was the other thing too, is that sometimes there are things specific in the BIOS that have to, you had mentioned earlier, like overclocking versus clocking, it's like all of those stuff have to be triggered in the BIOS. And, it really is amazing how much you guys know about, like you said also earlier too, you're not creative, but
you don't want to see my work.
But you understand what creatives need, and that's amazing. You recently got your hands on the 3090s. The RTX 3090s have been released, and I've been watching you put together this beast of machine. Can you talk about this machine that you're putting together?
You talk about the one with 4 of them?
The 4 cards.
Yeah, that one. So we actually do quad GPU workstations. I don't know if I'd say super regularly, but fairly regularly. We sell a handful of them, and they're really great. They're really not intended for like Adobe. They're intended for a lot of rendering's a big thing. So right. Octane Render, V-Ray, and machine learning's a big thing too. Because those you're supposed to run on these like high end like Quadros or Teslas. But man, they're so expensive that a lot of developers, they say, no, I'm going to use GeForce, and like maybe I'll kill one, but I don't care because it's a sixth the price. So
That's true.
So we do a lot of machines for that in rendering. And the problem with these newest cards is that they have a lot higher power draw. And so normally we would just put 4 in, and great, no problem. We'd use a 1600 watt power supply, which, that's a lot of watts. It's basically turns your computer into a space heater that also crunches numbers. But the problem we had isn't cooling. We thought cooling was going to be a problem, but we actually found cards that do a good job cooling, and it was fine. It's noisy, as you would expect. But the problem we had is it was drawing too much power from the wall and for the power supply. So if we wanted to do 4 of these cards, we'd have to get either a really high wattage power supply that would run like off of a 220 volt line. So basically you've got to replace the dryer in your house with your computer. Or you'd have to do, like we did some stuff with dual power supplies, but then you have the problem of most outlets in people's houses or offices are 15 amps.
Right. I was just
and that's putting you beyond 15 amps. So you basically have to, all right, this power supply I'm going to plug into the wall in my office. The other one I'm going to run an extension cord to like my bathroom, so it's on a separate circuit in my house. And I don't think we want to do that.
Well, that's one of the things that I'm actually amazed that I have everything running in this office, as many things as I have plugged into, basically 2 outlets that are on the same circuit. And that's one of the things that always makes me nervous. Thankfully, I have a couple of beefy, surge protectors, but still, it's, yeah. So that's interesting. I would have never even guessed that would be the issue.
Yeah, so, and we're looking at doing some shenanigans about like power limiting the cards, but there's a lot of things we always are very careful that anything we sell is going to work. Right. And if it's some sort of like, if we have to do something like on like a driver level or a software level, that has problems where like, well, customer might update the drivers or update Windows and it'll wipe out that setting. And suddenly they go to start a job and they get 2 days into some big project that's rendering, and then they turn on their coffee machine or something, and then power is out, and they lost all their progress. I'm like, no, we don't want that to happen.
Right. How do you do you guys have a place on your site that that tells you? Because one of the issues that I had on the other PC was, as you had mentioned, driver issues. NVIDIA would release a new driver. Oh, I have to update the new driver, and then all of a sudden Octane's not working, or how do you help your customers in that regard? I mean, obviously, probably the safest thing is to just not update.
Kind of the, I don't want to call it an annoying answer, but the fact of life is a lot of these things are going to auto update. So sometimes we just have to deal with the repercussions. luckily things have actually gotten a lot better more recently. NVIDIA has their studio drivers now that they update less frequently than their game drivers, and that's been going really well for us. So that's nice that that's there. But sometimes it's just those problems come up, and that's what our support guys are so good at. They're really good at, not going through the whole have you turned it off and back on again, not going through the script, but actually dialing into, okay, what is the problem? How can we fix it? How can we get it fixed as soon as possible so you're up and running as quickly as possible? And then after that, we can worry about the why behind it and what we can do to mitigate it in the future. But our first priority is always getting people back up and running as quickly as possible. And that's another thing that's a little bit unique to us, and something you don't find in too many companies these days, unless they're smaller, is support being in-house. In our building, which I guess admittedly only about half the people are actually working in the building physically right now. Everyone else is at home. But in the building, our support guys are downstairs, our consultants are upstairs, production is right outside in the warehouse. We're all on Slack, messaging all together. So it's very common for support to ask production something and they give an answer like, oh yeah, we do this, or, and just having all that communication. And that's something that you don't get from bigger companies. Heck, you don't even get that from Apple either. You ask some tech support stuff, they're going to go through a script. They're not going to, really understand what it is you're doing. Yeah. So that's a big advantage for us, and that's a service or something that we can really only provide to the markets that we focus on. So the creative markets, scientific and HVC, those kind of markets, because that's what we focus on. If we had a customer who bought a system from us for something outside of our expertise, then there's not as much value from us.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was one of the things that that Wilson kind of put my mind at ease as well too, because that was one of the biggest concerns that I had was if I was having an issue like you had mentioned that your customer was having, and it, and the deadline is approaching and it needs to get done, and I'm like, I don't have time to. There have been a couple of issues that have come up on my machine, since I've had it, that I haven't been able to that I haven't had the time to address. One of them is an audio issue, but I know in the back of my head I can call and I can get that support. Thankfully, I've been able to kind of work around it and get the tasks done. I'm hopefully in the next few weeks or so that I'll be able to call you guys and get that addressed. Speaking of audio, you guys do build audio workstations as well too, right? Yeah, it's not as much of an area of focus for us as video, photo kind of stuff. It's one that we've done a little bit of in the past, but we also are very careful that we don't spread ourselves too thin. Right. We know that if we start to take on too many things, we're not going to be able to offer the same level of expertise and support and everything. And we're human. We're not a huge company. We don't have unlimited resources. Right. So audio is one that we want to really focus on in the future. But right now, we do have some guys on staff that are very interested in audio just for themselves. Yeah. So we do have resources for that. And we do, I guess the way I'd say it is in audio, we are no worse than any other company. We're kind of on an equal playing field with a lot of other companies. It's kind of the way to say it, because we don't have all that extra testing that we've done and qualification and all that stuff. That's interesting. I'll off camera. I'll have to find out who those people are, because I would love to talk to them, because that's one of the things that's intrigued me in terms of PC versus Mac as well too. Is one of the biggest issues that I had with Premiere on the Mac was I have so many audio plugins, whether they're effects plugins or VST instruments or whatever it is. And so Premiere, anytime there was an update or there was whatever it was, Premiere would always, it scans all your plugins. It scans all your video plugins and it scans all your audio plugins. And it would literally take over an hour sometimes just to launch Premiere. And because it would, I think because it would go through that validation process of those particular plugins, and then for whatever reason, it didn't like some of the audio plugins and whatnot. So that's one of the in my mind, that's one of the benefits about having all of the video stuff on a PC versus the Mac, because I don't have to deal with that stuff anymore. So it would in the back of my mind, it would be I would hesitate putting audio stuff, and that's the reason I don't put any audio stuff on there. It's because I don't want to have to deal with that hassle. And I lost my place again. Yay!
Well, the one thing I will tell you, though, is you're really going to like Premiere 14.5 then, because they really improved launch times as well, especially when you have a whole lot of plugins.
Yeah, I know. With Premiere and Media Encoder are two that I would see online all the time. People complaining about almost that exact task is why it takes so long to open. And but I will say the first time I turned on this Puget machine, I mean literally seconds it was up, and I was just like, what? I mean the entire machine booted in seconds. I was just, what's going on? And then of course launching applications was like instant, and was just like mind blown.
It feels like technology recently is really starting to take that extra step of becoming something you don't even think about. And that's kind of one of our goals is your computer should sit under your desk or wherever it is.
Yeah. And
we don't want it to even come into your thought process. We want you to be able to sit down and just start working and not think about oh, my machine is slow, or anything.
And that was that was a big that was kind of a big push that Steve Jobs had as well too. It's like he just wants it to work. And that's what I think that's one of the things that I appreciated about this was it literally just worked. And I didn't have to think about it. So are you guys shipping the 3090s now, or are you still doing tech? Because that was going to be one of my other questions is when NVIDIA drops a new card, how long do you guys test that before you actually put it in your machines?
Yeah, it depends. A lot of it depends on whether we can get pre-launch samples. NVIDIA is pretty good. We had stuff pre-launch, so we had plenty of time to do testing ahead of time, so we were able to put them on our systems day one. There's still supply concerns. We're getting all of the systems out the door that people are ordering, so we're in a better situation than I think a lot of individual users, because you try to find one of these on Newegg or Amazon is impossible. But we have resources that end users don't, so we've been able to get cards in. So things like that we can do day one. A lot of the major CPU launches we can do day one too, because we get things ahead of time. But sometimes we don't get them ahead of time, and we're not going to sell it until we validate it, and that usually takes. It's usually 1 to 2 weeks is how long it takes to go through the qualification process. No, it's not bad. And we've always had the stance of we would rather not sell something than sell something that we're not sure of. Right.
No, and I think that speaks to your guys' integrity just in general.
It always makes me laugh. There's sometimes I go onto other sites, competitors or whatever, and I'll look and I'll see that they have this card listed for sale, but I know it was a paper launch. It's not actually available, but they don't have an ETA up or anything. It's just you can give us your money. Okay.
No, I'm not a big fan of the whole pre-order thing, because I've been burned a couple of times. And but that's that's one of the things that I absolutely appreciate about you guys is that you guys have the utmost integrity, where as you just mentioned, there are some some PC suppliers that wouldn't necessarily have that, and who knows what their testing process is in terms of putting that together.
There usually isn't much, because we also run the benchmarks we develop in a whole suite of other ones on every single system that goes out the door. And if you tell us you're using it for Premiere, we run it through what we call an extended burn-in. It's basically just looping our Premiere testing over and over to make sure that there's no problems, that the performance doesn't do weird things.
Right.
And no one else does that. Most other PC manufacturers, if they do anything, it's going to be like some game benchmarks, and they call it good. They do like a stress test, and that's it.
Right.
We actually test in the applications our customers use. We do like thermal images to check for like a chip that's running hotter than it should. That might indicate like a motherboard that might fail in a year, or things like that. So we do a lot, because a little bit of work spent ahead of time on our end is way better than spending that same amount of work later on a support call, which then also has a frustrated customer.
Right. Yeah.
Like, why?
Yeah. So so if I'm I'm a potential customer and I want to get a machine, walk me through that process. Obviously, like for me, I talked with Wilson, and it sounds like Wilson is pretty famous. Because I feel like everybody talks to Wilson.
Well, Wilson takes on a lot of our I don't want to call it like higher profile, but maybe more visible people. So a lot of the people you'd be talking to might have worked with them. But our other consultants are all terrific as well. But yeah, so oftentimes, I guess the flow that our analytics say most people go through is that they'll come into our website. We have a lot of our systems separated by software, actually not hardware. So you don't have to know, like, I want a Core or a Ryzen. Right. I'm Premiere.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they'll come in, they'll go to like our Premiere Pro workstations.
Right.
Oftentimes they'll get to the configure page, which is where like you're actually picking out the hardware, and they say, I don't know what I need.
Yeah.
So we have nice little forms that's there that say like, I want someone to contact me. Here's my contact info.
Right.
So usually, then one of our consultants will get them on the phone. Some people prefer email, but we always try to get people on the phone. You can get so much more information conveyed.
Yes, you can
over the phone. So we try to get them over the phone or email or chats. We go through and we ask them, like, again, what are they doing? What's your headaches? What software do you use? Down to like, okay, you use Premiere Pro and After Effects, but which one is more annoying to you? Which one do you spend more time in? And we use all of that, and then they will look at like all the performance testing we do that are all available to the public. Like we have articles and articles and articles.
Yeah.
They'll look at all that stuff, and then they take everything that the customer is doing, all the testing we've done, and try to narrow that down into, okay, here's the configuration we recommend, within your budget, that handles everything you need.
Right.
And then at that point, then it goes into our production department, which I think right now is a 2-week-ish lead time, or something like that.
Is amazing, during a pandemic. But so now when a customer configures their machine and it's purchased and it goes into the production process on your end, you guys do extensive testing on that particular machine, yes?
Yes. Every single machine goes through on the whole host of stuff. There's some very basic testing that is done early in the production process to catch easy to catch issues with like memory or hard drive that's bad, or the motherboard doing something weird. Then it goes through our install process, where every single system gets installed with Windows. Any software that they might want, like Office, or we install like Adobe Creative Cloud is an option, and all that jazz. No bloatware. We don't. I know a lot of places. even like Dells and Acers and those guys, like they get paid by Microsoft to install Office Trial.
I know.
Or whatever else, and we don't do any of that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there is a few things within Windows that we can't get rid of easily, so that's a little annoying, but we try to turn it off as much as we can, so it's not a bloated computer. When you get it, they have to spend a day and a half uninstalling junk. So it goes through our install, then it goes through our second testing process, and that's where we test things like very specifically for performance and stability. So very specific tests, like we test the hard drive to make sure it's running at exactly the speeds it should, video card, CPU. But that's also where we will test, like, we'll run our After Effects benchmark and our Photoshop benchmark and Premiere Pro. And we get all those performance tests, and they're all checked against our databases of, okay, how should it perform versus how it is performing, and to make sure that everything is right in line. After that, it goes to... Well, I'm not sure. I think they might have changed the order of a few of these things recently. But there is also an extended burn-in we do where anything that the customer says that they're doing, if we have a test for it, we'll run it even longer and run it on loops to make sure that it's stable.
You say burn-in. What is, like, What does that mean?
It's honestly doesn't really mean much. It's just a term we're using internally. But basically, that's where we try to stress the computer in the workloads that it's actually going to be doing in the real world.
Gotcha.
Because our other tests, like our Premiere Pro benchmark, is like a 20-minute benchmark that they run normally. That's great for performance, knowing how it's going to actually perform versus our other metrics. But that usually if a video editor is not going to be using Premiere Pro for 20 minutes.
Right.
So we really load it really heavy for I think the minimum is about 2 hours that it's being pummeled for 2 hours in Premiere or After Effects.
Right.
After that, it goes into our QC process, which is mostly to catch mistakes on our end rather than like hardware problems. Because hardware problems should be all caught by the benchmarks. This is like they'll look at it and they'll look at all the screws, make sure all the screws are tight, make sure there's nothing misassembled, make sure there's no scratches on the case. They do take thermal images in there. They listen for weird noises because it's a separate room that's nice and quiet, so they can hear like if there's a tick on a fan or some electrical noise. And if there's a problem, obviously it gets fixed. So all those kind of things that like is really hard to see on our warehouse floor. Like it's too noisy to hear if a fan has this little annoying tick. So they can hear it there because you'll hear that at home.
Oh yeah.
When you're in your office and if your system has this little like once a second just little like chirp or something.
Yeah.
Drive me nuts.
So what's kind of the average life of a Puget Systems machine? Like, meaning, because that was one of the things that I was concerned about is, I'm generally in After Effects or Premiere for, a good, kind of 8 hours a day. And, so, like I still have my 2012 MacBook Pro, and that thing, amazingly, I don't use it for. I've since stopped using it for any video stuff at all. But that thing is still a beast. I'm amazed that thing even still works. I think I still have my 2008 MacBook Pro as well too, and it still turns on, which is good. But what's kind of the average life of an average Puget PC?
That's a really hard one to answer, actually. I can try to give a couple of different answers. I would say that the longest I keep hearing about a system is probably about 5 years.
Okay.
Now, I don't think that's like, the system's going to die after 5 years.
Right.
I think just on like desktops with what our customers are doing, after the 5-year mark, anyone is going to decide like, oh, okay, it's time to upgrade.
Yeah.
Because the life of a system, if you take care of it, you dust it, and like, all that kind of jazz, it can last forever.
Right.
Well, maybe not forever, but it'll last a very long time.
That lasts a long time.
Yeah. But I think most of our customers, they end up, we have a few customers that will replace like once every year because for them, hey, if I can get 5% faster performance, it'll pay for itself in 2 months.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
But I think usually the life cycle for most of our customers on average is probably 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
And then it turns into their kid's machine or just a render server that's just churning away at stuff somewhere else.
Because that's been one of my, it's something that I think about for any hardware purchase is how long am I going to be able to use this thing, especially if it's, if it's a huge monetary investment. I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to get as much life out of it as possible.
And once you hit about the 5-year mark, that is where you're going to start seeing software stopping support. So like maybe the newer versions of Windows wouldn't support it, or Adobe wouldn't support it, or drivers.
Yeah. Now Windows 10 has been out for quite a number of years now. Is that I would assume that at some point that's gonna, there's gonna be a new version of that.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm in the camp who thinks that Windows 10 is going to be the last version of Windows, and then it's just going to be like updates, and like eventually it'll warp into something that's different.
Yeah.
But we're not going to see discrete versions of Windows 7, Windows 10.
Right.
Because they've already pushed quite a few major updates that changed a lot in the background. It's just that like the UI hasn't really changed. So
Right.
I don't know if there's going to be a new version of Windows.
Well, and you can also, I mean, you can also make the UI look like it's a classic Windows,
Yeah.
Windows environment. You know, I know that was also one of the things that kind of freaked me out is my last experience with Windows itself was not good. I mean, literally, I will be in the middle of an edit and the machine would just shut down. I don't know if it was the machine itself or if it was the OS. It could have been either or, but I think the last thing I wanted to ask you was Apple just released their new machines. Now, obviously, you guys don't sell Apple products or anything like that, but I mean, you need to be up to date with tech. Is that something that do you guys test? Do you guys do any tests on those things? I mean, because especially with the new Apple proprietary chips, you want to make sure that, that your machines are comparable or better or,
Yeah, no, yeah, totally. Yeah, I've been following their updates to ARM quite a bit. Like, it's super interesting. It is really cool what they're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're definitely watching that. Because, we do some testing with Macs because we have customers who are coming from Macs and they want to know, like, how much faster would a PC be? Because maybe they are wearing Windows or whatever. But if we can tell them, like, it'll be 50% faster. They're like, oh, okay. Yep, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So we do some performance testing. A number of our benchmarks that we put up for public download also can run on Mac, and they upload the results to a public database. So more recently, what we've been doing is just diving into that public database and just grabbing public results, and we can use that to tell a customer, like, okay, well, the new Mac Pro, we had a couple of results uploaded, with that configuration you were talking about that scored this. The PC configuration scores that. So we've been using that more than doing our own testing because, man, buying a Mac Pro for 20, 30, 40 grand is really hard to justify.
I know. When the iMac Pros came out, I was just like, okay, $5,000 for a base system, and that was also too, kind of the thought process that was going through my head in terms of, in getting a new machine is, at that time it was the iMac Pro, and the Mac Pros hadn't come out yet at all. But the iMac Pro, the base price was $5,000, and that didn't even address all of the RAM that I needed. It didn't address the graphics issues that I needed or anything like that. So like I would end up having to spend probably another couple of grand. To get that to do what I needed it to do, and I would have to hack into the OS to get the NVIDIA card to work, and I was like,
So this is my personal take. So this isn't like a Puget Systems thing, but my own personal is I think Apple is really, really good on mobile devices, whether it's phones, laptops. So I'm really excited what they're doing with the ARM stuff because supposedly performance is going to be great. I don't know if I believe that it's going to be much better than the old Macs in terms of performance. We'll have to see. But if nothing else, battery life should be amazing. Like if they can get similar performance even for double the battery life, awesome. And we don't. I'm fine cheering on for that because we don't sell laptops at Puget, so like great.
Right.
But their desktops, it's definitely you're paying the Apple tax kind of on anything desktop.
I know.
The engineering behind it, like the Mac Pros, we got one. Linus loaned us theirs to do some testing with it, and my goodness, the engineering of it is amazing. It's heavy. It's like a solid steel cube, but the engineering on it
your machines aren't light either, so
no, they're not. They're not light either. But that's what happens though when you put like big beefy heat sinks so that the fans don't have to sound like a jet engine and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like I don't know. I guess I don't know the inner workings of Apple, but absolutely, I would recommend Apple for anything mobile.
Yeah.
But once you get a desktop, you're just having to pay so much.
Yeah.
But the advantage, I suppose, is you know what you're getting because Apple is very consistent in terms of like quality.
Yeah.
And if you want to use Final Cut, or you really like the Apple ecosystem, I know that's a big draw. Having your phone
Yes.
and your laptop and your desktop all synced together is.
And that was one of the challenges of when I first got the machine and that was actually something I was going to ask you about as well too. I know we had a conversation a while ago about whether or not because obviously you have a lot of users in the video and graphics and editing world that are coming from a Mac because they need the power of a PC. But little things in the OS, kind of make a big difference. One of the things I still miss it. I've been using this machine now for a little bit, and it's still one of the things that I miss hitting the space bar to preview a file. I miss kind of the little things that Mac is really really good at. Do you guys have any kind of resources or any kind of guides? Kind of to help. Okay, well, here's if you want to have, if you want to hit spacebar to preview something, here's what you need to install.
Yeah.
Or do you guys have any kind of a coming from a Mac to a PC guide anywhere?
We do. It's been a little while since it's been updated, so I'm not sure what's on there. That is a big thing. We're working on a big website overhaul, actually. And once we do that, I know that is one thing we want to do. But yeah, I think somewhere like on our Premiere Pro recommended system, there's a moving from Mac to PC tab that kind of discusses some of that. I need to double check it because it's been, I think, again, it's been a little while since we've updated that.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Once we update to, we're completely moving platforms on our website, so it's taking a lot of work. Then we can get back to some of that static content. But, a lot of that is, hopefully a lot of that conversation comes out when talking with our consultants or with our support guys.
True.
Because there usually is a fix. Like the spacebar preview, there's an app for that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There's a little thing you get. I tried it and it worked great. The only problem is it doesn't support red footage.
Right.
Okay. I don't know if the spacebar preview does either.
Right.
But,
right.
So usually there is a fix. The things that there are not a easy answer for is anything having to do with Apple only software. So having your calendar sync or what is it, Apple AirDrop. I'm not an Apple guy myself.
Yeah.
So airdropping files or whatever it's called.
AirDrop is one of the things that one of the first things that I did was I figured out how to create a shared folder that I can share between Mac and PC, so in some ways that alleviated things. The other thing that I do too is sometimes I'll just upload. I have a transfer folder on Dropbox and I'll just upload it to there. And then I can just literally download it on my phone. I don't even have to worry about AirDrop or anything like that. But so it's I would say to a person coming from a Mac to a PC, there is going to be a little bit of a getting used to kind of the little little details and various different things. It's worth it. It's very much is worth kind of the I wouldn't say the learning curve is small. It's so I would totally that shouldn't be a fear that anybody has going from a Mac to a PC because you'll learn.
Some of it takes time. One of the biggest things that people have told us that was an annoyance was just the keyboard shortcuts. They switch from Mac to PC. I mean, I do that whenever I'm using a Mac. I have to remember, it's Command now.
Yes.
How do you delete a file? You have to hold Command while you hit delete or backspace or whatever it is. That's weird. That takes time. But the good part is always that once you're inside of Premiere or After Effects, it's the same. It's the same thing, same layout, same everything. So once you're in your creative space, you don't have to think about it even if you are used to a Mac and now you're on a PC.
Well, I have to say, Premiere inside of Premiere on the PC, and I know that a lot of that has to do with the hardware that's on the machine. But Premiere inside of the PC is so much so much better experience. It's not even funny. Same thing with After Effects. I mean, After Effects is just, everything's just, runs so completely smooth.
And that's the kind of thing that you can only get from a PC because you have choice. With Apple, you've got, I can buy this CPU or that CPU. Well, this one is in my budget. I guess I'm going with it.
Well,
on PC, it's like, well, here's 5 different options, and then we can tell you, use this one.
Right. And, in After Effects is such a RAM hog that you really, it's funny because I never really realized it until I actually had a lot more RAM. I never realized how much of a bottleneck that was until I didn't have to worry about it. And, RAM previews, all those things are just like, it's not even a thought anymore. And, and I personally never thought that it would be that big of a deal, but it really, truly is.
Yeah.
It really,
well, and that's
truly
one
is.
of those things that doesn't even show up on like benchmarks.
Yeah.
Like the amount of RAM you have doesn't affect raw performance. It doesn't affect how fast you can render each frame. It just affects how many frames can be cached. You don't have to re-render those frames when you go back.
Right.
So that's something that even like, like I was saying, a lot of our benchmarks are available to the public. And so our competitors could run them on their own machines, but they might not have the understanding of the entire workflow. So they'll look at just the performance numbers. They might get you in the right CPU, but they might not get you in the right memory and storage, configurations.
Now, I think I said the last thing I was going to ask you about was what I just asked you about. I just thought about one more thing. So, actually kind of piggybacking off of something that we, kind of talked about a little bit earlier, audio workstations versus, video workstations and whatnot. How do you, you guys have machines for Premiere, for After Effects, for Photoshop. Obviously, all of the Adobe products are taken care of. But, at what point did you guys decide, okay, we need to have a Resolve, a DaVinci Resolve machine, or was that something, that you, because obviously you've been doing Adobe for a while, you've been, you have a great relationship with them. When do you go about bringing in a new software package that you're going to develop a machine for?
So I think it's kind of, I was going to say twofold, but it might even be threefold. First is what our customers are coming to us for. So if we're like with Resolve, we saw that we were starting to get more customers coming to us for it. So it was like, okay, we should tackle this one, or we should put it on the list.
Right.
Second is what we see going on in the industry. So again, using Resolve as an example, a couple of years back, or whenever it was that they added editing, the edit tab, we're like, okay, there's a lot of buzz around this. There's a lot of excitement. So we're going to get ahead of it to try to get, in on it earlier. And that's really one of the big things with like Resolve. Like we were doing Resolve testing and we were only selling a handful of machines every month for Resolve. But we kept up at it because we knew it was going to grow.
Yeah.
And now it's great.
Right.
And then the third is kind of, even if those two things exist, we have to have the time for it.
Yeah.
And, whether that's like my own time, so I handle a lot of the video and photo. So if I get our Adobe apps, like the testing and everything else, to the point where like I feel like I can, I don't want to say coast, but where the maintenance is a lot less because we've already done all of the establishing work, then maybe I can take on another app. Or if we've made a hire into labs who can take off some of the stuff off my plate or take that on, then we can take it in because there's a lot more that we want to do. Our list of like the software we want to tackle is huge. Like I would love to be able to take on Avid Media Avid Media Composer, Sony Vegas. What else is on there? A lot of digital audio workstation stuff. Houdini, Nuke, Moto. I can just list and list and list.
It's not Sony Vegas anymore.
Oh, right. It's wait, what is it?
It's Magix, I think, is the name of the company.
Yeah. That shows how much time I've spent on it.
Well, it's funny. I was gonna say it's like it was Sony Vegas when I had my Sony Vaio, because I was actually working at Sony at the time. So, I mean, I'm a little surprised when I still hear that people are using Vegas, but
Yeah.
You
Well,
know-
and that's, I guess, is another part too. Like, even if we have a lot of customers asking us about something, it also can be like Illustrator comes up quite a bit, and we don't do any special testing for Illustrator because
Right.
well, we know it's like performance-wise, like you can just look at Photoshop and it's like the same thing.
Yeah.
I know, like functionally you use it differently, but the way it uses hardware is
Yeah.
basically the same. So great, we're not going to worry about it.
Right.
And for whatever reason, we rarely get any support things about Illustrator. I don't know why. That's weird. But then there's also, like you said, like Vegas or what's some of the newer ones, Filmora or some of those guys where. Or heck, let's even take it down to like Windows Movie Maker. Like, even if we got a lot of requests for it, it's like we know that, well, one, it's going to be not. I mean, this kind of sounds a little bit cold and businessy, but like we have to get the return on our own investment.
Right.
You know, just like someone doing their own, they got to get enough money back from the effort they spent in to make it feasible. And if the people who are going to be buying those systems are only very lower end systems.
Right.
We can't really devote as much time to it unless there's a huge number of people who are buying those. Like Photoshop, usually those are not super expensive systems.
True.
But everybody uses Photoshop in some way. So we'll spend time.
The Photoshop community is huge.
Yeah, I love Photoshop, man. All the stuff they've been doing. Like, they launched the new version with the neural filters that you can make people old automatically.
Oh,
that's like all I did. That I got nothing productive done. I just took pictures of everyone from work and I made them old.
Yeah, no. Boris FX just released a plugin for Photoshop that basically gives me all of my wonderful Sapphire video filters as well as digital film tools, which is all really great and gives me. I've been spending a lot more time in Photoshop than I have in a long time. Just playing around with that and so it's I've started to realize just how vast and expansive the Photoshop community is.
Yeah. Well, and actually that touches on plugins I didn't even mention, but plugins are another area that we feel like we've got to really start getting into some of them. Like Boris FX, Red Giant.
Yeah.
There's a few other ones that we could take on. Say, I think Avid might be one of the next ones we might try to tackle. But
I'm a little surprised you don't have an Avid machine.
Well, Avid is weird because Avid is very, very locked on hardware.
I know.
They're actually getting better, and we've actually had contact with them. So that's one of the reasons why we might start taking it on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're still getting a lot of questions about, hey, I use Premiere or After Effects, and I use the Boris FX suite.
Yes.
And Boris FX or Red Giant or any of those guys, they often use hardware very differently than like the base After Effects or Premiere.
Yeah.
So we might actually pivot, and the next thing we take on isn't actually a new software package. It might be almost a doubling down in like the Adobe suite and looking at plugin performance. And, there's still so much work we can do in just even the Adobe suite and like Blackmagic. I bring those up because those are my realms, but we have a whole bunch of other ones that the other three guys take on. But like in my realms, like there's still so much market for us, even in just the Adobe suite. If we sold a computer to every Adobe user, there's no way we could do that. Like we'd have to be a company 20 times our size.
I was going to say, well, that might be a good problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. So if we even just continue in that one thing, like we don't want to be narrow ever. Yeah. We want to be a little bit wide, but not so wide that we lose our expertise.
Yeah.
It's all balance. But so plugins might really just be the next thing actually for us before even a different software package. And a lot of people are not going to be happy to hear that because we get a lot of requests for like Capture One versus Lightroom or Vegas or all those other guys.
Well, I know I used to use a lot more plugins than I do now. I mean, I used to have all, it's like when a new plugin came out, I wanted to get my hands on it, play around with it and whatnot. And, so right now, literally, Boris FX, especially since Boris FX is, Continuum, Sapphire, and Mocha, so all of that stuff is all together in one package, which is really great. And Red Giant as well too, and then of course the only other plugin that I really use almost in every project is Element, and you know. That was one of the big issues that I had on the PC that I was using on at the company that I was working for, is I would constantly have errors. I would use Element on a project, and then the next day I'd come in and turn it on, and I'd open up the project with Element, and I'd automatically get the errors, and I'm just like. You know, it was. Thankfully, I have never ever had that issue on this machine. So I don't know what the deal was with that, but it certainly. I think one of the frustrating things was, and this is just how it is with developers, is you know the plugin developer. Well, it's not us, it's Adobe, and then Adobe is like, well, it's not us, it's the plugin developer, and then it's like, oh well, no, it's probably Dell, or you know, it's like it was just like, guys, come on. You know.
Yeah, well, and that's one thing we always try to avoid is the finger pointing. You know, even if we think it's Adobe, maybe we'll try to get them involved in the the problem.
Right.
But we're never gonna say like, okay, it's Adobe's problem. It's like, no, we think Adobe is at fault. Let's get you up and working.
Right.
Or we think it's the plugin's fault. Let's get you up and working.
And I think that focus on the customer is very much what separates you guys from everyone else.
And that's why we will never lose that.
Yeah, and as a customer, I can tell you, I certainly, absolutely, 100% appreciate. I think I remember seeing a video on your YouTube channel from Mike Pecci, who now I bring it up and I can't remember what he said, but it was just so. It was just so perfect, the tagline that he had, and you know, no bullshit, I think is what I think is kind of the tagline that he has, and that is absolutely 100%, you know, exemplifies what you guys are. Do you have any final thoughts? Any final words? Any? I was gonna say, do you want to pitch something? But you're not. There's nothing you want to pitch. I mean, or is there? I don't know.
Well, I mean, we can always say if you're interested in a new system, our consultants aren't paid on commission, so there's no pressure from them to get you to buy. So even if you're just kind of doing some fact finding missions, we're always available from phone, email, or whatever. If you go to our website pugetsystems.com, there's an about us at the top that has all the various forms of contact. Or I think there's even I think it's just a chat bot. Maybe you can get a hold. I don't know. I've never used it, but I would say phone. Phone is always good.
Yeah.
But yeah, even if you just want to, do some exploratory, hey, this is my headache right now. Would a new system even solve that problem?
Right.
And in fact, one of the things we've been spinning up more recently is. We do all of our benchmark testing. That's great from like a generic, but more and more we're trying to get our customers to like, hey, send us a project. Like, send us some of the media from your camera because it's always different than anything else we've tested. And so we're trying to get more and more customers to send us something so we can load it onto a system, whatever system they're thinking about buying, and we can say like, okay, here's the actual performance you're going to get. With the workflow you actually described to us, so that they know like what the return on investment is. Themselves.
That's an interesting concept in and of itself, and I'm
really excited about it.
And I wish you wouldn't have said that because now I want to delve into that a little bit more. But we've been going for a while, and I want to respect your time. Thank you so much, Matt, for coming on here and doing this. And I just want to. PugetSystems.com is the website. People can go there and configure a machine, or if you need, I would actually personally recommend that you guys call and talk to a representative, because in a world where we're becoming more and more disconnected because of devices, there's nothing more personal than actually having that phone call with somebody who is there to help you get exactly what you need. And you had said it earlier as well too. They're not paid on commission, so they're not going to try and sell you a machine, with hardware that you don't need.
Yeah, we want it to feel like you're calling your friend who's a tech guy who happens to have all of this knowledge about exactly what you are doing, rather than calling someone for a sales.
Right. Yeah, and it very much is that. It really is great, and it's. If you are doing anything creative, then obviously the computer is going to be kind of the heartbeat of what you need to get that creative vision out. So thank you very much, Matt. I really appreciate it, and I can foresee us probably having another conversation in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, man.
Okay, thank you.